Now, Dr. Orrin, you know how loose these 18 points are. The intermediate security force, once they move in, the IDF is going to be somewhat constrained, are they not? Are you in a hurry to have that happen, or do you think that's a step best saved for later?
No, if Hamas still has one gun, they'll use that force as a shield behind which they can fire that gun. And we know from the history of the Middle East that peacekeeping forces, and they say this is not a peacekeeping force, but it is a peacekeeping force, that peacekeeping forces in the Middle East only work when there's no peace to keep, right? And if there's actually peace to keep in Gaza, it'll be much more difficult. People forget we had European troops in Gaza. We had an American military delegation in Gaza. Everyone left. Everybody left. It was too dangerous. Yeah,
I forgot that.
Left. The Dutch were there, the Italians were there, the French were there. My good friend Keith Dayton was there, great guy. They all picked up and left. And no one's going to die for Palestine. No one's going to die for Israel, certainly. And so disarmament is absolutely the sine qua non of the success of the remaining points. Because once that goes into motion, now what you could have a situation where the Saudis and other Middle Eastern or Muslim countries could end run Hamas and say, okay, you're not going to disarm, we're going to make peace with Israel anyway. I published an article in today's Yediot in Hebrew. I have a weekly column in Hebrew, and I said, back in the Oslo process, we had what was called stage two. Okay, Oslo called for a number of stages, ending with a two-state solution. We got stuck at stage two. Stage two is where the Palestinian Authority controls Area A of the West Bank. Area B, it has political control, but military control, and the largest part of Judea and Samaria is C, which is under exclusive Israeli political and military control. That is called second stage. I said in my article, maybe we should have second stage in Gaza. It wouldn't be the end of the world. You have Hamas in political and military control over its little enclave. No one's going to invest there. People will live in debris. And the area under Israeli control will prosper, and there will be investment. And maybe that's the best we can hope for right now. And it's not the worst of all possible outcomes.
Well, I've heard people talk about the East Berlin, West Berlin analogy. And that made sense, except to my knowledge, there weren't tunnels running from East Berlin under West Berlin where terrorists or Stasi would pop up and shoot people. Do you think that Israel has got 95% of the tunnels closed that are at least under IDF-controlled territory?
No. What I heard was about 50%. But here's the big difference. Before the release of the hostages, we couldn't do anything about those tunnels. We couldn't fill them with seawater. We couldn't seal them with concrete. Now we can do that. We can do what the Americans did in Vietnam back in the 1960s. We can flood them with napalm and set up a match. There's many ways you can deal with tunnels now that we couldn't do because the hostages were down there. And I would imagine we will proceed to do precisely that.
But you will not. Let me put a statement in the form of a question. Will Israel tell us what they're doing in the tunnels? Because this is one broadcaster who thinks it's better that the West doesn't know.
I don't know why. Why should we keep that from anybody? It's nothing that's too sensitive. It's not exactly, the beeper and the pagers operation.
Only because you can't see it. No one will know that it's true or not. So if you can't verify it, it's pretty hard to make the assertion that they're closed. I would just close them.
The proof will be in the fact that Hamas can no longer, as you said, pop up out of the tunnels and fire an RPG at our soldiers' back. That'll be the proof. Now, they will continue to do it. They will have cells. They don't necessarily need the tunnels. They can have cells operating as they have cells operating in towns in the West Bank. They can have cells operating in the area of Gaza under our control. Undoubtedly, they'll have that. We're going to have to grapple with that. We are in the Middle East, let us not forget. But a stage two, a phase two of the 20 points, even if we can't move on to the other points in the program, again, is not the end of the world for Israel.
So, Dr. Orrin, one of the things that English language Israeli media and certainly American media does not carry is how badly destroyed the Hamas leadership, in air quotes, for the benefit of people who aren't watching, just listening. I used air quotes. Hamas leadership has been destroyed. Who's running it, if anyone's running it? And do they actually have command and control anymore of whoever they call their rank and file?
They have a process. where, one guy meets his maker and another person moves up in line. It's not as if these guys are going to Harvard Business School. Okay, they're not. They haven't had a lot of training in administration, so they have enough training to run a terrorist organization. And yes, I think that their command and control has been impaired, but it's not diminished entirely. I put out a tweet. I don't tweet very often this week, and I implored President Trump not to fall for the oldest terrorist trick in the book, which is to say, there's a terrorist attack, and back in the day, it would be Yasser Arafat, the PLO, would say, we have nothing to do with it. It was a rogue operation. That's what they said about the 1972 massacre of Israeli Olympics in Munich. That's what they said about the outbreak of the Second Intifada in 2000. It's not us, it's the rogues. So Hamas says every time there's now an attack, they'll say it's not us, it's a rogue. We cannot play that trick. We cannot play that game. Every terrorist attack, we will say that the address for that terrorist attack is Hamas with whatever commanders and command control they have.
So I listened this week to Daniel Hartman and Yossi Klein Halevi suggesting that the United States is now controlling Israeli responses in Gaza. I would be very surprised if we'd gone Lyndon Johnson on Israel, or that Israel would allow us to go Lyndon Johnson on picking targets, etc. What's your assessment of that relationship right now?
Listen, it is very close. And as I said on this program many times, President Biden said don't, and everyone did. When this guy says don't, no one dare do. And that's not just true for Israel. It's true for everybody in the Middle East, by the way. It's true for everybody in the Middle East. You think that the Qataris going to take on Donald Trump? You think the Emiratis, the Saudis, are going to take on Donald Trump? No one is. He's a very powerful president in foreign affairs. So, yes. So our latitude is somewhat restricted, but we have a very open and I think constructive relationship with this administration. And we will make the case that if Hamas is not disarming, if Hamas is directing cells to open fire on Israeli soldiers and civilians, we'll go to the administration and say, listen, we're going to take these guys out. We want you to have our back.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.